This is wrestling's greatest moments.
Hey now, wrestling fans. It's time for another episode of Wrestling's Greatest Moments. Wrestling fans can't get enough of the lovable losers who lost their fights and counted the lights weekly in the WWF and elsewhere. So much so that you've asked for more videos covering your favorite enhancement talents. Sit back as Wrestling's Greatest Moments looks at jobber deep cuts. Before we get started though, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit that notification bell so you don't miss a single video. Whether you call them jobbers, preliminary wrestlers, or enhancement talent, these wrestlers weren't in it to win it, but to make their opponents look like $1 million and give wrestling fans an idea of what an opponent could do in the ring. As discussed in previous videos, jobbers came from various backgrounds. Some were former greats who had lost a step with age. Others were up-and-coming performers looking to make a name for themselves. Others were capable wrestlers who lacked the look, opportunity, or X factor that made their colleagues into stars. Whatever the case, these wrestlers served a vital role in wrestling, and their contribution should never be ignored or understated. Rudy Diamond. Rudy Diamond is a wrestler who attained jobberdom immortality with one match. Diamond, who looked better suited for ringing up customers at 7-Eleven rather than stepping into the ring, epitomized enhancement talent's lowest rung. Rare was a match where he generated offense, let alone a win. Nonetheless, his 1984 match against Paul Mr. Wonderful Orndorff was one of the greatest moments of heroic failures in history, perhaps only rivaled by the bullfighter El Gallo. Orndorff, who was working as a heel in the WWF, was furious as he prepared for a match against his latest opponent. Why? Actually, not even a question of why, as Orndorff always seemed like he was ready to rip someone's head off, whether he was a heel or a babyface. Here, the fans tormented Orndorff by chanting Paula at him and displaying their Paula signs. As always, announcer Vince McMahon made it a point to mention Orndorff's hatred for his not-so-nice nickname Paula. Paula's opponent, Rudy Diamond, disappeared from the ring while Orndorff yelled at the fans, returning with a t-shirt emblazoned with Paula on the back and front. Needless to say, Diamond's goose was cooked, and while he did his best to slip in and out of the ring, Orndorff eventually caught up with him and proceeded to destroy him, throwing him around the ring like a sack of potatoes, which coincidentally Diamond looked to weigh as much as, before clotheslining him into oblivion. Mr. Wonderful then gave Diamond 2 pile drivers to send a message to anyone else looking for a quick laugh. Sadly, Diamond didn't do a stretcher job, nor did the ringside doctor check on Diamond's medical alert bracelet, a must for any jobber. Still, Diamond became famous despite counting the lights on a regular basis, and fans still laugh about this great moment. Barry O. Barry O was a familiar face to WWF fans in the 1980s, and even when kayfabe still ran strong, fans wondered why Cowboy Bob Orton Jr.'s brother was counting the lights, while Ace Orton was well established in the upper card. Whatever the reasons, and we'll get to those in a moment, Barry O was a solid worker, and might have been a jobber to the stars, or even mid-card talent. However, wrestling wasn't his first love. Orton was fascinated by music and movies. In 2006, he told Slam Wrestling's Jamie Hemmings, "I was always struggling because I wanted to be a musician and never saw myself as a professional wrestler. I was into the performance end, but I didn't live the lifestyle. I wasn't about being in the gym 6 hours a day. I was about being a rock star. Where I was gifted in the ring, I didn't do all the things you were supposed to do." Nonetheless, Barry enjoyed success outside the WWF, including winning the International Championship Wrestling Southeastern Tag Team Championship with his brother. Barry also had a highly regarded run playing Zodiac, a sinister masked figure in Calgary Stampede Wrestling who managed Jason the Terrible and was known for his cutting-edge promos and presentation. While the WWF might have promoted the brothers Orton, that didn't happen. As noted by the good folks at WrestleCrap, Vince apparently decided that one Orton running around was enough. So since Cowboy Bob was there first, he got to keep the Orton family name. Barry was rechristened Barry O, and it was never acknowledged the two were even related, except for one goof by Vince, accidentally calling Barry Mr. Orton, O, when he made a rare TV appearance on the TNT show. Plagued by self-doubts, Barry turned to drugs and alcohol in what he described in a 2006 interview as his attempt to escape and medicate. This led to him operating a vehicle under the influence and crashing said vehicle. While Orton escaped with injuries, his female passenger wasn't so fortunate and passed away, with Orton ending up serving prison time. just shy of 2 years. Orton returned to the WWF, but his courageous decision to back up allegations against former WWF employee Terry Garvin, who Barry accused of making lewd advances to him when he was younger, likely ended Orton's WWF run. Orton appeared on The Phil Donahue Show to discuss the seedy side of professional wrestling, a move which some believe led to him being banned by the WWF. Dusty Wolfe, aka Dale Wolfe. Dusty Wolfe was another wrestler who knew his job was all about making someone else look good, at least in the WWF, where he continually counted the lights. Although, like many enhancement talents, Dusty had success in smaller promotions. In his case, Puerto Rico's World Wrestling Council, where he held championship gold. Dusty was considered a solid worker, and wrestler Ricky Vaughan, aka Lance Von Erich, praised Dusty's skills in his memoir Lance by Chance, recalling working with Dusty in world-class championship wrestling. I liked how Dusty worked in the ring, and we had very good chemistry together when we wrestled. Promoters knew they had a dependable worker in Dusty, and he always had work, whether it was his well-known run in the WWF, appearances in WCW, or appearances in smaller promotions. For those wondering, Dusty Wolfe was indeed the same man as Dale Wolfe. Wrestling lore has it that Vince McMahon renamed Dusty to Dale Wolfe when Dusty Rhodes entered the WWF, not wanting to confuse fans who might mistake a 215-pound wrestler with a 300-pound wrestler adorned in polka dots. Terry Gibbs. Terry Gibbs is another example of the big fish in a small pond performer who enjoyed championship success in smaller promotions, but found himself cast in the role of jobber in the WWF. Like so many wrestlers we've seen who fall into this category, such as Leaping Lanny Poffo and Coco Beware, Gibbs' past success, including titles in Angelo Poffo's International Championship Wrestling, Central States Wrestling, and the World Wrestling Council, and the skills he acquired outside the WWF, made him an excellent person to help put others over. Gibbs wasn't a powerhouse, but he didn't look like a 98-pound weakling either. Although WWF fans likely remember him from his run in the company during the mid to late 1980s, fans from many territories will remember his time campaigning around the United States and even Japan. Johnny K-9. Jobber Johnny K-9 was a menacing figure in the ring, and as we'll see, this aura worked well outside the ring. Johnny, who had also worked as Bruiser Bedlam and the Terrible Turk, stood out from his fellow jobbers. According to an article from Canada's The National Post, he said he took the nickname when he was arrested and saw a canine, the designation for a police dog, painted on the side of the police vehicle he was placed in. Johnny K-9 was entertaining in the ring, and he looked like the last person you'd want to stumble across in a dark alley. This made his opponents look all the better when he put them over. Johnny enjoyed some success in Smoky Mountain Wrestling. He also worked in New Japan Pro Wrestling, Frontier Martial Arts Wrestling, and other promotions, winning territorial titles like Smoky Mountain Wrestling's Beat the Champ title. Given Johnny's run-in with law enforcement, Baron Bedlam was a good name for him outside the ring. Johnny K-9 ended up behind bars after he bombed a police station, which apparently wasn't his target, but police nonetheless didn't seem to take kindly. We'll look closer at Johnny K-9's in-ring and out-of-the-ring hijinks down the road. Johnny K-9 died in 2017 at age 53. Pete Sanchez. Pete Sanchez proved to be a reliable hand in the WWF, working there from 1959 when it was still Capitol Wrestling, all the way until 1992. Sanchez's reliability seems evident by the many promotions he worked in, including the WWF, AWA, and different NWA territories. He also worked for the Pro Wrestling USA collaboration. One of Sanchez's most notable matches occurred in 1976 when he squared off against Nature Boy Ric Flair. Flair was making his Madison Square Garden debut, and Sanchez gave him a run for his money. But like any good jobber, he came up short. Sanchez enjoyed success elsewhere, including Stampede Wrestling, where he held the Stampede International Tag Team Championship, and the NWA Western States Sports Territory, where he held the Western States Tag Team Championship. Sanchez worked as Gino Caruso in both promotions. He also held the American Tag Team Championship in the Midwest Wrestling promotion. Silent Brian McNe. There are some amazing stories of aspiring wrestlers' efforts to make it into the wrestling industry, but few are as compelling as that of Brian McNe. The Hamilton, Ontario native reportedly idolized wrestler Johnny Powers, not to be confused with enhancement talent Jim Powers, and trained with wrestler Reggie Love. According to historian Greg Oliver, McNe began wrestling in 1972 and, during his 26 years in the business, he wrestled in the US, Japan, Canada, often dressing in kilts to show off his Scottish heritage. McNe was primarily booked out of Frank and Jack Tunney's Toronto wrestling office. McNe competed in the WWF, appearing at house shows and TV tapings when the WWF came to Ontario, Canada. Although Silent Brian, as he was often referred to, counted the lights on a regular basis, he was a capable worker, and even appeared in the 1978 Canadian wrestling film Blood and Guts. Most impressive, McNe was deaf, but mastered the nuances of the squared circle, a testament to his resolve and courage. Gino Carabello. Gino Carabello is an enhancement talent whose name comes up in fans' discussions of jobbers from yesteryear, but sadly there's not so much we know about him, other than that he competed in the WWF during the 1980s from 1984 to around 1989. Carabello could be found in singles and tag matches, and he teamed with fellow enhancement stalwarts such as Iron Mike Sharp and Steve Lombardi, as well as wrestlers more on his level like AJ Petruzzi and Charlie Fulton. Carabello wrestled WWF Junior Heavyweight Champion Les Thornton in 1985. A reminder that even jobbers could finagle the occasional high-profile match. According to some fans, Carabello had a cult following in Brantford, Ontario, and fans would even bring signs to show their support for him. Michael Saxon. Wrestling fans have adopted certain jobbers as their favorites based on various factors ranging from ridiculous names to in-ring quality. For some fans, jobber Michael Saxon, or Saxton depending on what the announcers decided to call him, deserves a spot in any Jobber Hall of Fame, simply because of his entrance attire. Wrestling's Greatest Moments isn't sure if Michael spent as much money on his beautifully sequined blue ring jacket as Ric Flair did on his ring robes, but it was still a work of art. Saxon's outfit, of course, was meant to play off the King of Pop, Michael Jackson, and Vince McMahon routinely pointed out that fans shouldn't confuse things. True to form, Vince ran the joke into the ground much like he did with his babyface push for Roman Reigns years later. Unfortunately, Saxon's in-ring abilities were limited, even for a jobber, and he made late 1980s era Jimmy Valiant look like Lou Thesz by comparison. Although Saxon was nothing less than a punching bag, he was a gorgeously attired one. Bob Bradley. Was Bob Bradley a jobber or a jobber to the stars? Let's examine his career. Reportedly trained by Jimmy Superfly Snuka, Bob had an extended run in the WWF, putting over opponents. As seen with other enhancement talent such as Jose Luis Rivera and George South, talented enhancement workers served double duty under a mask. Bradley worked as several masked wrestlers in the WWF, including the Tiger, Red Demon, and later, the second version of Battle Cat, who was originally played by Brady Boone. Bob enjoyed moderate success as Battle Cat, defeating jobbers to the stars such as the Brooklyn Brawler and Buddy Rose. Unfortunately, the WWF dropped the gimmick, and it was back to playing Bob Bradley. Despite coming up short in the WWF, Bradley had a short but successful run in World Class Wrestling Association, winning the vacant Texas Heavyweight Championship in a tournament. And who did Bob beat? None other than the Dingo Warrior, aka the Ultimate Warrior. Bob also competed in WCW and Bill Watts' Universal Wrestling Federation, putting over opponents. He later worked in Smoky Mountain Wrestling, toured in All Japan Pro Wrestling, and appeared on the indie scene. Do you remember these wrestlers who weren't short on talent, but ultimately came up short in the ring? Should promoters bring back jobbers and jobbers to the stars? Who are your favorites, and what other stars would you like to see in-depth profiles of? Share your thoughts in the comment section, and let us know if there's any videos you'd like Wrestling's Greatest Moments to cover. In the meantime, subscribe to our channel, follow us on X and Instagram, and spread the good news about Wrestling's Greatest Moments, the channel that celebrates the squared circle.